guys, welcome. This is Shameless After 30, the YouTube edition, and finally the time has come. I have finally put a visual to all of my shenanigans, shit talking, and all of my lovely logic on living life shamelessly once you hit 30. Now, as a disclaimer, this is not discrediting or disregarding anyone that is under 30. This is just giving perspective from the eyes of someone like me. Hello. That is fearless, shameless, glowing, and lavish living outside of being 30 without a kid. So, stay tuned and enjoy. Oh God, ooh, where do I even begin? So the whole synopsis and breakdown of why I even wanted to start this podcast and this YouTube channel was because I just felt so awkward and uncomfortable when I would go to like family functions and I would hear those random same questions. When are you gonna have a baby? When are you gonna get married? When are you this? When are you that? Did it. So yeah, like I would go to these family functions and it would just be like the most annoying thing. Number one, and this is to anyone that is watching and you are that person that asks these random questions at family functions, that uncle or that aunt. Understand, some people that you may ask that to, you don't know what their life is outside of what has been given or told to you. You don't know what medical issues they may have. You don't know if maybe they have went into a point in their life where they were ready to carry and something may have happened. You don't know the mental state that they're in, that they're probably not able to bring life because they're not done doing the things that they need to do to nurture their life. So when you want to ask people these questions, it's very insensitive, and I feel like you need to take a step back and just ask yourself like, hey, you don't know what this person is going through. So if you just feel like you have to ask that question because they didn't have a +1 that is pissing on themselves at a family function, refrain from asking that question, okay? All right. People get so fearful when they hear 30. They get so like apprehensive about what's life past that point. For me, 20s were fun. I had a great time in my 20s, but I feel like my life really went to a new height of awesomeness once I hit 30, okay? 30 for me was just the pillar of new heights I wanted to reach. It was just a pillar of another type of happiness that I wanted to endure. And that's because when I was in my 20s, I felt like I did what a typical 20-year-old would do, which is, have fun, even though I still do those things now, but there are certain limitations to the type of fun that I would have. But I definitely enjoyed my 20s for what my 20s had to offer. Now, when you hit 30, 30 has a whole different range of offers that are provided for you, okay? Some people like to use the cliche, 30s to new 20s. No, 20s is 20s, 30s is 30s. 30s is not something that you enjoy because you're comparing it to your 20s. 30s is something that you look at it and you see the potential in it, okay? It's all about progression. It's a new level, a new chapter. It's a new genre. It's just something else. It's its own entity. So when I talk about the things that I enjoy in my 30s, it's not because I put down the things that I didn't like about myself in my 20s or I'm comparing it to my 20s. No, I enjoyed my 20s for what it was and what it had to offer me and what it molded me to be, to now enjoy the memories I would create and the legacy I am able to create and live in my 30s. Now, there was a point where I felt like I was ready. I was in love, and I wanted to have kids and all that good stuff. And it took for me to have a traumatic breakup that kind of put things into perspective. Because if I was so ready to have a kid right then and there with that person, where the only thing I was ready and prepared with was just my emotional state, the love and I would be such a great mom, but all the rest of the cards weren't dealt to me. Like I wasn't financially ready, mentally I wasn't ready. I thought I was, but no. And it took for me to have that breakup to realize like, oh wow, I was ready to give myself to a man and reproduce with this man because I was so infatuated with with the of, oh, you should have a kid by this age. Oh, you should be a wife by this age. Oh, you should do this by this age. And that, now that I look back at it, that's not the case, It's just all about the timing. Just about the timing. Live life your way happily. I just feel like that's something that we should take in everything that we do. In your 30s, let's see, things that you can do in your 30s. Once you hit 30, there are those times where you look back and you reflect and you're like, you fantasize of what you expected from your 30s. I expected to be on Oprah's level of billionaire status by 30, but I fell a little short. Just a little short. But nevertheless, that does not take from the drive of getting to that level. There was once where I saw a post that said Taraji didn't hit her career peak until she was in her 30s. Oprah didn't become the billionaire she was until she was in her 30s, or a millionaire until she was in her 30s. And things like that is what's very inspirational to me. Not to say that you can't hit those peaks in your 20s, because it's about the timing. You can hit those moments whenever God presents it to you. But for those that it has not come in their 20s, hey, 30s is not a death toll. 30 does not mean that this is your sunset on your tombstone. 30s just means, hey, this is the time to look at things in a different perspective. Now, one thing I will say is, when you are in your 20s, there's a lot of room for error. There's a lot of crawl before you walk stages. There's a lot of, procrastination. I'll put it off to this day. I'll wait to this day. Once you hit your 30s, you should be looking at life totally different at that point. There is no procrastination. There is no crawling before you walk. Because one thing you got to know when you're in your 30s, sharks are born swimming. Okay? Sharks are born swimming. Yeah, you can learn. There's always trial and error. But all that procrastinating, putting it off, no. When you hit 30, it's the time of action. Like for me, there are so many things that I wanted to do and I wanted to accomplish. And once I got to this point, I'm like, okay, I want to do it. I write it out. I put it down on paper and I start doing everything on the checklist to accomplish it, to achieve it, to get to where I'm trying to go with that goal. So that's one thing that you do have to understand and differentiate between your roaring 20s and your lit ass 30s. 20s, you can bullshit and dick around and keep pushing it off until later. But when you hit your 30s, there is no later. When you want to achieve something, accomplish something, do it now. The time is always now. Now, don't get this confused with children, okay? There's some people that's probably like, oh, she's contradicting herself. No, I'm not. When you're thinking about kids, that's something totally different. When you're thinking about your dreams, your aspirations, the things that you're striving to be in life, in your 30s is not the time to keep playing and crawling and trying to figure it out. Figuring it out requires action when you're in your 30s. So in your 20s, you could play games. You could, wait for this person to make moves so you could follow in their tracks. When you hit your 30s, you got to make your own path. You got to make your own tracks. You have to act off your own impulse. You got to motivate yourself. You got to inspire yourself. There's just a whole different type of way you move when you hit your 30s. Like, yeah, have your fun, but know that there has to be structure. 30s is all about structure. You got to know what you want to do and the steps it takes to get to that. So for me, that's what it was about when I hit my 30s. It was like, all right, I'm going to be lit. I'm going to still have fun, but there has to be structure. There has to be a time for the fun. There has to be a place for this. In your 20s, you could do those things. You could do it at your own leisure. But in your 30s, you got to know that, yeah, like, I can't really get wasted. Like I would have back in the day, because I got to be up early. I still got things I have to do. You can't even eat certain foods no more when you hit your 30s like you would have in your 20s, because it just finds different places to go that you ain't ready for. Hold on. What it's like being 30 without kids? For me, I feel like having children has to be a choice where Not necessarily saying you have to be prepared, but there has to be a mental state that you have to be in when you're at that point where you want to reproduce. Not to say I've never reached that point, but for me, being 30 without kids, I'm happy. Do I have moments where I am like, oh, I want to have a little one? Yeah, and I grab a bottle of wine, I take a sip, and I just enjoy life outside of that. So being a 30-year-old without kids, it's fun. I'm the best aunt you could probably have. I'm the best, I'm good with kids. I love them. I love them. I think they are the light of the world. We are the world, whatever. Kids are awesome. But I just don't feel like life has to be defined by the amount of people you can bring into it. Everything is about timing. Just because you hit 30 does not mean that that is a death sentence. It's an expiration date on your ovaries. That does not mean that, okay? Live your life and live it at your own pace. So I've had men that I would meet and they're like, oh, you're 30 without kids, or can you even have them? And I'm like, yo, what is that to ask someone? Okay, thank you. From what my doctor says, I am very capable of reproducing, so thanks to that. When you approach a person that does not have children, at least at the age where you feel like they should have had a kid, it's very insensitive. And I think it's very inhumane to even label someone with a negative stigmatism because they do not have children by a certain age. Now, I feel like being that I have reached this age graphic that I'm at now, this demographic, this age bracket that I'm at now, if I'm going to bring a kid into this world, I just feel like there's certain things that I need presented to myself, I need have accomplished, being that I've waited this long, okay? Not having children at 30 is not a death sentence, okay? It does not mean there's something wrong with you. It does not mean that you want to be a partier, a loner. It does not mean that you do not care. It just means that the level of life that you are looking to live right now, you are still focused on living that level of life solely for you, okay? To me, not having children at this age is probably one of the most selfless things that I have ever done in my life, because I know what I want to provide for a child. I'm not at that bracket yet in my life to want to reproduce, to have this or lack thereof this for a child. So anyone that's out there that does not have children by 29, 30, or 30 plus on into your roaring fabulous 40s, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. For me, I love to travel. So traveling right now has no restrictions. If you have a child, not that I know this personally, but just from the outside looking in, for the ones that do have children, they just have to maneuver in a certain way. Being me, or a person like me that is childless, we have more freedoms to be more spontaneous. I could literally get up and do the randomest acts and not have to worry about, oh wait, but who's gonna watch my kid? Or, oh wait, I can't do this wild adventurous thing because, oh, what if something happens to me? I got my kid, I don't wanna leave my kid, Those are some of the freedoms that comes with living a spontaneous life childless. Wanting kids. Do I want kids? Yes, I want them one day. I feel like it's a beautiful thing. Now, wanting kids and being a parent does not mean you have to physically have them, okay? I can possibly be that person that takes in a foster child, or I might adopt. Being a parent does not mean the physical act of reproducing. You can still be a parent whether you're able or not. If you have that spirit, that loving, kind heart, and you are at a position where you're ready to share that with someone else, you're able, okay? That's the part that I like to put emphasis on. When you're able to bring new life into this world, whether they already been on this earth for X amount of years or you push them out yourselves, when you're at that point where you're able, when I'm at that point when I'm able, mentally, financially, then I would do so. So it's all about timing. That's what Shameless After 30 is all about. It's living life your way. It's not hurting anyone. It's not enabling anyone. You're living it at your pace, your way, your life. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check me out every Monday, Shameless After 30, and check out my podcast available right now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.